Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Hinata was forced to marry Emperor Naruto Part 1? I will prove my worth useless. Weak. Fragile. Those words defined her. Though she was the first princess of the Hyuga throne, her father saw her as unfitting, her sister pitied her, and the whole royal family looked away whenever she entered the room. Disappointment and rejection was all she's ever known for the past 24 years of her life. She was quiet, compared to Hinata, who wasn't afraid to speak up and voice her opinions. She was not fit to be a warrior, even though it was required for all royal members to be trained in combat. She was incapable of standing in front of thousands of villagers to say a simple hello, and if she couldn't even greet her own people with confidence, as her father said, she was not fit to be born into royalty. The only good thing about her that people gossiped about was her beauty. Her lavender orbs that seemingly hypnotized anyone who stared at her, her wavering locks that grew lusciously over the years, and her flawless porcelain skin was unmatched, even by the queens of the neighboring kingdoms. However, beauty got her nowhere, especially in the Hyuga household. They valued strength and Urshan, none of which she had. And now, as she stood in front of the throne and the royal court, her life was being bought and locked away, forever, against her will. She stared at the scroll in her trembling hands, and her breath quivered. This is the royal decree. The emperor expresses his affection for Hinata of the Hyuga kingdom. In order to further ensure alliance and flow of trade between the two kingdoms, the princess of the throne is to be betrothed to the emperor. The Hyuga princess will be declared as the first empress of the Uzumaki era, and as such, the Hyuga kingdom will receive unlimited protection and be first-hand priority during wars and kingdom conflicts. The emperor has gifted the price of 20,000 pounds of gold bars, 20,000 pounds of silver orbs, 20,000 pounds of diamonds, 1,500 pounds of new weaponry, 10,000 pounds of poultry and grain. The emperor offers peace and stability for this marriage alliance. Should you accept this marriage alliance, the emperor will descend upon the Hyuga kingdom on the 30th night of the crescent moon to take his bride. End of royal decree, signed and approved by the royal court of the Uzumaki kingdom. She knew she was unloved and frankly, unwanted, but she didn't know that her own father would actually sell her away to the Uzumaki emperor. Naruto Uzumaki was the current reigning emperor and controlled all 8 kingdoms: the Hyuga kingdom, the Haruno kingdom, the Uchiha kingdom, the Yamanaka kingdom, the Inuzuka kingdom, the Nara kingdom, the Aburame kingdom, and of course, the Uzumaki kingdom. She's never seen him, but judging from the letter, it seems as if he already laid eyes on her, and evidently wanted her as his empress. She didn't know much about him, only the fact that he was a young hero who united them all when there was a raging war between the kingdoms only 5 years ago. She could recall her father going out frequently with the palace soldiers to fight, but all other information was withheld because she and her sister were locked up in the castle to be protected. Overall, the Uzumaki emperor did not seem like an overbearing tyrant or a cruel, power-hungry man, but it still didn't excuse the fact that she was going to be married to an absolute stranger and be expected to spend her whole life with him. Hinata slowly averted her eyes up to her father, and with all the courage she had left in her, she replied, "I decline, father." Hiyashi gazed at her with that all too familiar ice-cold expression and almost scowled at her defiance. "You have never done anything to benefit this kingdom. I do not understand why he chose you, out of all the more capable princesses. The fact that you will be the empress and have legal power over me, shakes me to the core, daughter. However, the emperor has declared his affection for you, as stated. And I, as the king of the Hyuga kingdom, will not turn away the much-needed resources listed in exchange for you." With a wave of his hand, 2 court members retrieved the scroll from her and brought it to him. "Whether you decline this marriage or not, is not up to you. I will order the servants to gather your belongings. Be prepared to meet the emperor within a month's time to discuss the marriage arrangements. The whole room gasped when Hinata abruptly dropped to her knees. Father, please, don't send me away like this. I cannot live with the emperor, much less rule over the kingdoms as empress. Get up. Hiashi cut her off harshly. Not another word, Hinata. You will be the emperor's wife. You do not kneel, even to me. I cannot marry someone I don't love, please, please. Hinata was on the verge of tears, but she wouldn't let them fall, especially not in front of the whole royal court. Romance. This is not about love. Marriage is more than petty feelings and emotions, especially for someone of high status like us. Marriage is a contract. It is business. It brings resources and unites our kingdoms to promote peace. Raising you up till now, you should know better. He glanced over at Hinata's mother. Your mother understood her duty when she was betrothed to me. Nearly all the leaders of the 8 kingdoms were in a marriage arrangement. No one married out of love, Hinata. I understand, but, I beg, please reconsider, for the sake that I am your first daughter. It is because you are my first daughter, that I am accepting the emperor's proposal. Hiashi cut her off with such remarks that made her mind blank. She knew there was no way out of this. There was no excuse that could beat what the emperor would gift their kingdom if she married him. Those resources were worth more than her life, and if the emperor had asked for her head instead, she was sure that Hiashi would cut it off himself without a second thought. I will do anything to prove that I am worthy of being a Hyuga. Just don't sell me away like this. Father, I will do anything. If you want to prove your worth to the Hyuga family, then be a good empress, damn it. Hiashi slammed his fist down on the arm of his throne, making everyone in the room jump at the loud echo that followed. You will not dishonor this family any longer. You are dismissed, daughter. Hinata's jaw clenched and she stayed quiet at his comment. She forced herself to shut down her overwhelming emotions and pushed down her tears. Unworthy. A princess who dishonored the royal family. Another set of phrases that now defined her. She just wanted to leave the room with the last of her dignity. She swallowed the air stuck in her throat and then relaxed her shoulders after realizing how tense her body was. She slowly stood up and though her hands were still shaking, she brought them together gracefully in front of her and fixed the front of her long dress. Again, mustering up her courage, she resisted the urge to bow as usual to her parents on the throne and to the other 10 royal court members seated on both sides of her. Instead, she stood her ground and though her heart was pounding like crazy, she met her father's piercing gaze with her own and could see that her father was slightly taken back by her firm stance. If that was what her father wanted, then so be it. She will prove it, that she was not weak, useless, unworthy, and most of all, that she was a daughter worth the Hyuga name. If being empress was the burden she had to bear in order for acceptance, then starting from today onward, she vowed to herself that she would make them all regret how they treated her. Then, from now on, father. She didn't know why, but she felt as if a fire ignited in her at that moment. She was numb to the usual anxiety and emberment she felt when she stood in the middle of the room with all eyes looking at her. Right now, she felt powerful. No, from now on, the Hyuga kingdom. Her eyes scanned across her mother, sister, and the court members on both sides, indicating that the message also applied to them. You all bow to me. Without even staying a second more to see the evident shock on everyone's faces, she turned around and walked out of the room, leaving the door shut behind her with a loud bang. Love at first sight. Hinata sat in the 6-foot-deep and 10-feet-long hot tub, filled with lavender petals and droplets of vanilla extract as 2 servants washed her hair and cleaned her nails. In just 2 weeks, she will be meeting the emperor, so there was an order from her father to groom and pamper her every single day. It was quite exhausting, to be honest, to be flooded with maids and servants attending to her body at almost every hour of the day. She had little privacy and it pained her that even her last moments of being a princess could not be in peace and solidarity. Ever since she stated so boldly in front of the throne that the Hyuga kingdom would all bow to her, she has not stepped foot outside of her room. It felt absolutely glorious to her in the moment, but as soon as she retreated back to her room, all the fearful emotions washed over her again. Hinata let out a deep sigh and shut her eyes tightly, trying to let the steam and warm water calm her mind. She did not regret it, though. She meant every word she said. All the memories that she's ever had of her family, of this palace, brought nothing but pain and heartache. She remembered that as young as 4 years old, her mother was never affectionate to her or Hinabi. Hinata always felt a longing for a motherly, affectionate figure to look up to, but her mother proved opposite of that. Hinabi took it a lot better, of course, and grew up to be a fierce warrior to the point where Hiyashi entrusted her to be second in command of the palace soldiers. Hinata always fell short in combat against Hinabi. She just didn't want to hurt her little sister. Though Hinabi had no problem fighting with all her might, Hinata always held back. It was at that moment, when they were being trained to fight at 7 years old, that Hinata could see Hiyashi's attitude towards her changing. It was almost as if he looked at her like he regretted having her as a daughter, like he despised her. And once he started treating her like she was a burden, everyone else in the palace treated her like it as well. Though she was envied as the most beautiful princess in all the kingdoms, she was also gossiped as the most useless and weakest one. She was too shy, too quiet, too lenient and too kind, far from what the Hyuga family wanted in their firstborn princess. Anime and manga. That's why, she was going to make it her life mission from now on to turn that perspective around. She was going to make everyone see that she was capable. She knew it was going to take a lot of work. Her personality would have to do a full 180-degree turn for her to be able to rule as Empress. Empress. That word made her tremble. It was such a dominant position, literally second in command of the all 8 kingdoms. The fact that she would be reigning supreme with the emperor and have authority over her own father made her think of sweet revenge, but not the kind of revenge that was cruel or hateful. Success. Killing them with kindness. Seeing them lower their eyes and bow their heads in shame for how they looked down on her, that was the best revenge. Kindness. She wasn't going to change that aspect of herself. She wasn't going to become some cold-blooded or ruthless woman who would hurt her own family. As much as they rejected and hurt her, she still had pride as a Hyuga family member, and though they treated her as unworthy, she still had a deep respect for them. Definitely not love, though. She didn't even know what that word meant or felt like. The closest thing to love she's ever known was caring for Hinabi. She knew she would do anything for her little sister, even though inevitably, in the face of danger, Hinabi would probably be the one to protect her instead. Her eyes fluttered open again and she stuck out her hand, where a towel was immediately placed in her grasp. She dismissed the 2 servants before getting out to dry herself and then walked back to her room, where 2 other servants awaited by her large vanity mirror, holding up her outfit for the day. She unwrapped the towel around her and slipped into the silky lavender dress that flowed beautifully down to her feet. Thank you. She smiled faintly at the servants before they bowed to her and left the room. She sat down in front of the vanity mirror and stared at herself. For a couple of days now, she's been wondering how the emperor even saw her. She was absolutely sure that they have never met in person before. He must have heard the gossips about her beauty, or seen her from afar while visiting the Hyuga kingdom at some point in time. She also wondered, would he be a good husband? Her heart pounded rigorously at the thought that she would have to lay in bed next to a man. A very powerful man, at that. What kind of relationship would they have, aside from the fact that they were going to be legally married to each other? Would they eventually come to love each other? Hinata's mind always hit a brick wall whenever it came to love. Her whole life, she couldn't recall seeing her parents displaying any acts of affection. They always just sat on the throne, with those stoic expressions full of pride and prestige, and if they were out in public together, the only physical contact that happened was her mother linking one arm around Hiyashi's. She was so curious and dumbfounded as to how they could live like that, with no ounce of affection or warmth for each other. Or maybe they did love each other, but only displayed their feelings behind closed doors. She doubted that, though. The thought of Hiyashi being all lovey-dovey with her mother made her cringe. If, in the end, her marriage life was going to be just like her parents, she knew she couldn't do anything about it. Frankly, she was fine if she and the emperor will never love each other. Even though she longed for love, like her father said, marriage was just a contract for business and resources. In her case, this marriage was a message. It was a statement, to not only her family, but to her kingdom, that her name as Empress of the Uzumaki era will ripple throughout the lands and through history. Before her last breath, she was going to make the Hyuga bloodline kneel before her feet. She damn well deserved an apology. Tapping his finger eagerly on the arm of his throne, Naruto's eyes gleamed at the scroll that was currently being presented to him back from the Hyuga kingdom. He has been waiting 2 whole weeks for it. The Hyuga king has sent his response. One of the court members handed the scroll to him. Naruto untied the red sash around the scroll and unrolled it, his eyes scanning feverishly across the written message. In response to the royal decree from the Uzumaki emperor, the Hyuga imperial family expresses great appreciation for His Majesty's interest in the first princess. King Hiyashi gives his utmost sincere gratitude for the resources gifted as part of the marriage agreement. The Hyuga princess, Hinata, accepts the proposal and will be prepared accordingly to meet with His Majesty at the time requested. Anime and manga. Status. Accepted. End of response to the royal decree, signed and approved by the royal court of the Hyuga kingdom. Yes. Naruto's inner thoughts screamed with excitement and bliss, but he kept his outer composure and handed the scroll back to the court member. It seems I will be preparing to take my bride on the 30th night of the crescent moon. Make preparations accordingly to meet with King Hiyashi on that night to discuss the marriage arrangements. I plan to invite all the royalties of the 8 kingdoms to join the ceremony, so also prepare for that as well. The 20 court members nodded at his request and then dismissed themselves at the wave of his hand. Naruto smiled contentedly to himself as he retired to the palace garden, with his elite bodyguard, Kakashi, walking right behind him. He felt like he couldn't contain himself now, knowing that he'll have Hinata as his wife in less than 30 days. He remembered the first time he saw her. It was nearly months ago, when he disguised himself as a commoner to visit all 8 kingdoms to inspect village conditions and see for himself if the people of his empire were living in peace and had enough to eat. After the war 5 years ago, he just wanted an update to observe if everything was still harmonious, and he'd rather see it for himself instead of having a palace court member read to him the conditions of each kingdom. He didn't want to be an emperor who just sat on a large chair for the next 50 years. He wanted to be involved with and among them, and build relationships with them. He wanted to an emperor who was respected, but approachable. It took him a total of 6 months to pee through each kingdom, and he left his commander-in-chief of the Uzumaki Imperial Guards in charge of the palace while he was gone. When he entered the Hyuga kingdom, the first thing he heard gossiped among the people was that the first princess had unmatched beauty beyond words. He remembered eyeing the tower that was specifically higher, attached to the Hyuga palace, and in that instant when he squinted his eyes to see the figure leaning out the window of the tower, it was as if time completely froze. Though he wasn't close enough to see small details, he was near enough to make out the prominent features. Her eyes, staying true to the rare eyes of the Hyuga bloodline, was a gorgeous light lavender. Her hair flowed lusciously over her shoulders as she peered down to scan across the village under her, and her skin was a fair porcelain tone. When he saw her lips curve into a small smile, he swore that everything else drowned out around him. It was the first time in his life that he's ever been mesmerized by a woman. He never paid much attention to women or things such as love because his life goal was to be emperor and unite all the kingdoms together under one empire and one allegiance. But now, he had another goal in mind. He was going to make the Hyuga princess his bride. He wondered if this is what people meant when they talked about falling in love at first sight. He only recalled having one crush in his lifetime, Sakura, of the Haruno kingdom. However, that didn't end too well since she was now married to Prince Sasuke, who was in line of succession to the Uchiha throne. That was all puppy love, anyways. A mere crush. This was different. It was a strange thing to admit, but the Hyuga princess he was staring at right now, he was sure that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. He didn't even know her. He never spoke to her. He literally just happened to see her at this exact moment, and now, he never wanted her out of his sight. Geez, it seemed almost creepy and stalker-ish when he realized what he was thinking right now. However, he couldn't deny it, either. He genuinely felt some sort of attraction to her. Her beauty really was unmatched compared to every other princess and queen in the empire. Kakashi. Yes, Your Majesty. Naruto rolled his eyes. Stop being so dramatic. You practically trained me and raised me. You can just call me Naruto. He then pointed up to the tower. Her. I want her as my bride. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, but when his gaze followed to where Naruto was pointing and saw Hinata, he evidently understood at that instant why Naruto would randomly say something like that. Anime and manga. As you wish. We will send out a royal decree to ask for her hand in marriage. Bethanata's heart nearly skipped a beat when her door suddenly slammed open. She glared at Hanabi, who came skipping in and then sat on her bed. So sister, are you excited to meet your beloved husband in just 1 week? Hanabi, please. Hinata sighed and pointed out the door. Go away. Well, geez. I left you alone for nearly 14 days straight and you can't even say a simple hello. I am going to become the empress. I need time to process this. Please, just let me get used to the distance. Hanabi kept quiet and observed her older sister carefully. It wasn't like her to be so cold and furtive, the traits that their father wished Hinata would have had earlier. She honestly was proud that Hinata stood up to the whole royal family like that, though. Hinata wasn't like the other Hyuga family members, they lacked the compassion and empathy that she had. Hinata was always kind and nurturing, even though she never even knew what being treated like that felt like. Hanabi always felt some sort of pity towards her sister. Hinata deserved to be loved unconditionally. She was too good for this family. You deserve the title as Empress, Hinata. I know you will be great. Hinata was taken by surprise when Hanabi suddenly lunged forward and hugged her tightly. This was the first time, ever, that she's been hugged. It was soothing. Judging by the stiffness of Hanabi's arms, Hinata guessed that this was a bit out of her comfort zone, too. Hinata couldn't help but let out a small laugh and then embraced her little sister back. Thank you, Hanabi. Your Majesty, you're making it quite obvious that you're anxious. You've been fidgeting a lot lately. Kakashi eyed down at Naruto's knee, which was shaking up and down repeatedly for about a whole half an hour now. Well, I just, wanna see her again. I should have announced the meeting to be earlier. Do you think it'd be rude to show up unexpectedly? Kakashi just gave him a look that said, duh. Naruto sighed and leaned back on his throne. I can't wait until we actually meet. I want to hear how her voice sounds like, how she talks, and I want to know her personality, too. I don't know, Kakashi, this is the first time that I've ever felt like this about a person. Is this love? Kakashi shrugged at him. Everyone has their own definition of love. You might just be infatuated by her looks, to be honest. What? How can you say that? Of course, she's absolutely breathtaking, but that's not all. I really do want to get to know her on a deeper level. I wonder what her hobbies are and if she likes ramen, too. I can have the best ramen in the empire served to her. She'll be so happy. Kakashi swore that sometimes Naruto was just a kid stuck in a man's body. Sure, he knew Naruto's true power and that when it came time to be serious, Naruto would know how to take command, but, when he was comfortable around someone, he acted like this. Like a curious and joyful little boy. Your Majesty. Naruto put a hand up, silencing him at that moment. Please, Kakashi, stop calling me that. It's just so weird, coming from you. It's only proper. I can't call you on a first name basis now that you're emperor. Naruto just slumped his shoulders in defeat. His knees stopped shaking, but now his finger was tapping a constant rhythm. Do you think she'll like me? Just because she accepted the proposal doesn't mean there are any emotional aspects involved. You can technically just order her to be your bride and there would be no opposition, but you can't force her feelings. Whether she comes to like you or not, depends on how you treat her when she becomes your wife. That's the problem, though. I've never been affectionate with a woman before, so I don't want to make a bad first impression. Should I practice what to say to her? You just need to say how you really feel in the moment and be honest when you meet with her. Yay, you're right. Naruto's eyes lit up and a smile graced his face. It's set then. When I meet her, I will tell her that I love her with all my heart and soul. Discover more. TV show guides, consumer resources, writing software, TV and video, microblogging, privacy policy templates, website security audits, mobile app development, anime, gaming accessories. No, you don't want to do that. Quote. Kakashi shook his head and sighed in frustration. A relationship takes time to develop. You, of all people, should know that. You need to value progress in the little steps. Your Majesty, you can't just upright say that you love her. You can say that you find her beautiful, that she is charming, that you will guide and cherish her when she becomes your empress. Be honest with your feelings, but also be careful in how you say it to her. Kakashi internally cringed at the awestruck look that Naruto was giving him right now. If it wasn't my life goal to become emperor, I'd hand you the throne right now, Kakashi. Hinata tried her best to control her trembling hands and took a few deep breaths to calm down. She gazed straight at the large, intricately carved wooden doors at the end of the hallway that led to the royal courtroom where her father and mother were probably awaiting on their thrones. There was an order from Hiashi for her to meet with them again to discuss the marriage. She wasn't sure what to expect, especially since she left so abruptly and confidently the last time she before them. Once she was at the doors, she cleared her throat and then slowly pushed it open. As usual, her parents were sitting with their emotionless faces, with the exception of the frown that appeared from time to time. She usually bowed to them once she stood in front of them, but she refrained from doing so. She would keep her composure this time. Father, mother, she greeted bluntly. She could see the evident flicker of amusement in Hiyashi's eyes, probably because he was eager to see what she would say or do this time. The Emperor will be here on the 30th night of the crescent moon to discuss the marriage with us. After we have finalized the arrangements, you will be leaving with him that night and the ceremony will be taking place approximately 2 days after that. Am I required to prepare a gift to the Emperor when he arrives? No, since you will be leaving with him after the meeting is over. Hinata nodded. Then, who will be attending the ceremony? She silently prayed the whole empire would not be invited. She couldn't even stand in front of her own kingdom, so how will she stand in front of all 8? She couldn't even put to scale how much people would be crowded together in the Uzumaki kingdom on that day. It would be almost chaotic. I've received word that all the royalties of the 8 kingdoms will be attending, so be at your best behavior, daughter. Hinata hated it, how he belittled her like that. He talked to her as if she was a troublesome little child who was going to cause mischief. What do you mean by that, father? She dared to ask, her heart pounding when Hiyashi's eyes narrowed at her. Must I elaborate on your qualities that make you unfit as royalty? Hiashi had a habit of poking at her insecurities. It made her want to kill herself sometimes. If she was such a disappointment, why didn't they just take her out of this world the moment she became a burden to them? If you still see me as unworthy of the Hyuga name, let me make a bet with you. Hiashi raised an eyebrow. A bet? On the first night of the next new moon, approximately 1 year from now, when it is as tradition for the father to bestow a gift as a blessing for the marriage. Hinata paused, thinking whether or not this was a smart idea. She might as well be digging her grave if she lost in the end. Instead of giving me a gift, I want to challenge you to a duel, father. Gasps of disbelief filled the room. It was absolutely unheard of for a woman to challenge a man to a fight, much less a daughter challenging her own father. What kind of blasphemy are you talking about, Hinata? How dare you say such a thing? Hinata's mother scolded her. Hinata ignored her. Place your bet. Everyone in the room stared at Hiashi with weary eyes, scared that he might possibly order an execution for her saying something so out of the ordinary. Hiashi was glaring so intently at Hinata that she swore a hole was going to burn through her. Then, much to everyone's surprise, a smirk slowly graced Hiyashi's face. How interesting. Where was this boldness and confidence that we desired from you for so long? Hinata has never seen that expression geared towards her before. She's only ever seen it when he watched Hanabi fight, or if something was mildly amusing to him. It almost made her want to cry. If I win, your abilities to use the Byakugan will be sealed permanently. Hinata felt her body go cold. The Byakugan was the Hyuga's pride and glory. Every royalty of the Eight Kingdom had abilities unique to their bloodline and throne. If she lost to her father and had her Byakugan permanently sealed, she would no longer even be considered a part of the Hyuga family anymore. Her father was basically stating that if she lost, they would disown her. And if you win, daughter? Hiashi replied smugly, as if he had already won. Hinata's eyes stayed glued to the floor, and she stayed quiet, as if contemplating hard on what to say. Well, if he was going to go as far as disowning her, then she wasn't going to hold back. She raised her head and looked back and forth between her parents. If I win, every single person in the Hyuga Imperial Palace will kneel down at my feet with their heads touching the floor for exactly 20 days for belittling me for the past 20 years of my life. No exceptions. Hinata's mother immediately stood up. I've had about enough of your defiance. How do you expect members of the royal family to kneel with our heads to the floor for 20 whole days? My queen, please. Hiashi shook his head at her. Our daughter has made her bet, we will comply. Even though he said that, Hinata could see the discomfort on his face. What a sight that would be, to see her parents facing down on the floor and kneeling before her. That is, if she won, of course. Her father was no doubt one of the strongest kings, only second to the Uchiha king. She would have to train in the next 12 months as if her life depended on it. Meeting. The sun was already setting, with purple, pink, and orange bleeding across the sky. It would take at least 4 hours to reach the Hyuga kingdom. Naruto couldn't wait until the moment he stood face to face with her. She was so beautiful, he was afraid he might just freeze up and be at loss for words. Not only that, but he couldn't wait to truly know her personality and character as well. He peered out of his carrier that was being pulled by 4 white horses and could see the crescent moon rising up in the east sky. Eager to meet your bride, your majesty. Kakashi commented. He was sitting right across from Naruto. Yes, I am. Can you believe that she'll be coming home with me tonight? Honestly, I was okay with being single for my entire life. As long as I am emperor and as long as I can keep peace and unity during my reign, I can die happy. But now, after seeing her, I realize why it's important for every leader of a nation to have a companion alongside him. Naruto leaned back and crossed his arms. Speaking of which, Kakashi, During all these years that I've known you, I've never once seen you take interest in a woman before. His eyebrows suddenly arched up. Are you, more interested in? The answer to what you are about to say is no. My life's mission was to train and raise you. And now, it is to protect you. I have no other desires. Though he had no parents, Naruto never longed for a fatherly figure. Kakashi filled all those empty parts of his life: a father, a mentor, and a friend. There was probably no one else in the world who he trusted more. You're the best, Kakashi. Naruto simply grinned at him. I know. Tracing the intricate design of the lace that was embroidered onto her ivory dress, Hinata stared at herself in the mirror as servants finished getting her ready for the night. It was unbelievable that she really was going to leave this place tonight. She would wake up the next morning, to a place where she would call her new home. She would have a husband. She would be a wife. She figured that it would only take her focus away from her real goal. She saw how women were when they were in love, it clouded their thoughts and changed their behaviors. She didn't deny that love was a good and beautiful thing, and it was something she hungrily yearned for, but right now, she just didn't have the time for it. There was no doubt that the best soldiers and combat leaders were in the Uzumaki Palace. She would have options to choose from if she wanted to train to her fullest abilities. Princess, the hour has come. Your father has requested your presence in the throne room. One of the servants announced. The gut-churning flutter in her stomach that happened every time she was nervous was starting up again. She looked outside to see the crescent moon now high up in the midnight blue sky and figured that the emperor would be arriving very shortly. She took one last glance at herself and let out a deep sigh before exiting her bedroom. She hoped that the emperor would at least be decent looking. She knew he wasn't old based on the rumors that he was the youngest emperor in history. The stories about him were truly inspiring and heroic. As she neared the throne room, she realized the doors were opened and she could see her parents sitting, already eyeing her. Hanabi sat on one side next to Hiashi and she guessed the empty chair next to her mother would be her seat for tonight. The princess's belongings are all prepared? Hiashi asked the servants who followed behind Hinata. Yes, King Hiashi. We've prepared Princess Hinata's belongings according to your order. It will be loaded onto the emperor's carriage at the end of the night. Hiashi nodded in approval and the servants quickly scattered to their places on the sides. Come take your seat, daughter. I've received word that the emperor is at the foot of the castle door. Hinata walked up to her seat and sat down next to her mother. She noticed that her father had taken extra measures today to make the place look extravagant. The usual dim candles that hung down from the ceiling were replaced with diamond chandeliers, and she also realized that the floor was polished and waxed to the point where she could literally see her reflection on the ground. She almost held her breath when there was a sudden sound of trumpets and saw that the palace guards immediately flooded the hallway in two, perfectly parallel lines to welcome their guest. Her fingers clenched tightly and she swore that her palms were sweating right now. She was eager to see the man who she would be calling her husband from now on. An unfamiliar man came scurrying into the throne room and raising his voice so that it echoed throughout the place, he announced the arrival. The Uzumaki Emperor has descended upon the palace. Please stand to greet His Majesty. Hiashi stood up first. They all swiftly followed after his actions and faced the wooden doors, peering out the long hallway that was now lined with the palace guards. Hinata kept her eager gaze ahead as a well-built man with uniquely white hair dressed in a black and orange outfit entered through the hallway. Trailing after him were 6 men that formed a circle around a certain individual in the middle so that he would be shielded and properly protected. A glimpse of that individual's blonde hair caught Hinata's attention. As soon as the man with white hair reached a few feet in front of Hiashi's throne, Hiashi bowed his head in greeting. We are honored to have the Emperor here in the Hyuga Kingdom. We hope your travels were safe and pleasant. The man in white bowed in return. Thank you for the hospitality. I am the Emperor's private bodyguard, Kakashi. Please extend your greetings to His Majesty. Kakashi stepped to the side and signaled for the 6 men to move aside as well. They stepped away to reveal, much to Hinata's surprise, a man who looked just about her age. He had striking blonde hair and the most beautiful cerulean blue eyes she's ever seen. Like Kakashi, his attire was black and orange, but was evidently more elegant, and he even wore a long black cape that draped down his back to the floor. Hinata stood in a phase when he suddenly flashed a smile at them and bowed his head slightly in respect. King Hiashi, pleased to meet you. Likewise, Emperor. The Hyuga royal family welcomes you to our palace. A beautiful palace it is. Out of the 8 kingdoms that I've visited, only the Uchiha Palace comes to par with it. Thank you for the compliment, Your Majesty. And as for the marriage, what are the specifics of the ceremony? As stated in the royal decree, I will gift the resources to this kingdom within the next 30 days. If there's any delay or trouble with the transportation of the items, I will be notified immediately to solve it and let you know as well. The ceremony will be in 2 days. I'm sure the message has already been relayed to you, but the royals of all 8 kingdoms and their families will attending. I will not be inviting the whole empire since it'll be troublesome to keep control of that many people in the Uzumaki Palace. Do not worry about the details, decoration and food will be entirely taken care of. You just need to show up. As for the marriage itself, Naruto's eyes trailed over to Hinata. Hinata tried desperately to keep her gaze steady, but ended up averting them down to the floor. She was hopeful that the Emperor would be decent, but now that he stood in front of her, she was pretty damn sure she underestimated his qualities. She couldn't believe that she was being betrothed to such a handsome man, who literally held the empire in the palm of his hand, and yet, still seemed like an absolute gentleman. She suddenly felt like she wasn't worthy enough to be standing beside him as Empress. I promise to take care of your daughter and ensure that she is protected at all costs. She'll be the Empire's treasure and my life's devotion. No one has ever spoken about her like that. For the first time in her life, she felt like she mattered. We thank you for your compliments, Your Majesty. If my daughter is unfit in any way in the future, you are welcome to discipline her as you now have all authority over her as her husband. Naruto simply just shook his head and couldn't stop staring at Hinata, who refused to meet eyes with him. She was even more beautiful up close. I have no doubts about her. Though this is our first meeting, she seems humble and kind, the very qualities that I desire in a wife. She will be a fine empress, as I will train and guide her to become a leader. Rest assured, King Hiashi. Naruto then beckoned for Kakashi to give him something. Kakashi pulled out a scroll from the inside of his sleeves and handed it to him. Naruto swiftly unrolled it with one pull of the red sash and then presented it to Hiashi. As her father, you will sign first. This is the legal marriage certificate of the Empire. It will be recorded and kept safe in the Uzumaki Records Temple and no one will have access to it, with the exception of you and I, as well as the princess. Hiashi nodded and quickly scanned over the writings before snapping his fingers. A gold signature glowed at the bottom of the scroll and then permanently inked itself onto the paper. Naruto then turned to Hinata, who hesitatingly did the same. Naruto then rolled it back up and Kakashi retrieved it, sliding it up again into his long robe sleeve. It is set, then. We are legally betrothed to each other. All that's left is the public ceremony and announcement. Hinata's cheeks flushed when Naruto reached his palm out to her. My bride. Let's go home. As if it had a mind of its own, her hand placed itself into his. He held it tightly and pulled her closer to him, flashing yet another charming smile, but this time only for her. She finally had the courage to make eye contact with him and felt like she drowned in them the moment she did. Naruto Uzumaki was her husband, now. Once that fact clicked in her mind, her stomach fluttered and her heart slammed against her chest. He gently pulled her along with him as they made their way out of throne room, with Kakashi and everyone following after. Hinata could see the carriage and 4 horses awaiting at the bottom of the stairs of the castle entrance. The servants just finished loading up her belongings and then one of them quickly ran over to open the carriage door for them. Naruto turned back around to face Hiashi and Hyuga royal family as Kakashi and the rest of his men scurried along on their horses and onto the sides of the carriage. We will take our leave and we will meet again in 2 days. I will send over 4 of my men for your protection on the way to the Uzumaki Palace. He held out one hand. Now that we are family, I hope you don't mind me calling you father. Hiashi just bowed his head in respect and then shook hands with Naruto. It is an absolute honor to have the Emperor as my son-in-law. He then turned his attention to Hinata. Hinata waited eagerly for his words. Maybe he will finally say something encouraging or kind to her now that she is officially departing from the Hyuga kingdom. We will see you in 2 days. Ah, of course. What was she expecting? Hiashi was never the one for sentimental words, and frankly, they didn't have that good of a relationship for him to suddenly start caring. Naruto once again pulled her with him and urged her to go in first. Turning her back to her family, she took a deep breath and stepped into the carriage, with Naruto following closely after. Though she never knew love from her family and all they did was hurt and reject her, with the exception of Hanabi, her heart still felt heavy as the door closed shut. Was this how it felt to miss something? It was pathetic though, that she would miss the very people who didn't even want her. As if it was magic, her thoughts dispersed into thin air and the heaviness in her chest disappeared when a strong hand held hers and intimately entangled their fingers together. She didn't even notice that Naruto sat right next to her when he entered. Are you alright? That was such a simple question, but it was a question that no one has ever asked her before, because no one ever cared. She felt like crying but she took a deep breath and held it in. How embering it would be to cry in front of her husband, who she just barely met. I will manage. Thank you, Your Majesty. Wow. Music to his ears. He finally heard her voice. She was so soft-spoken that it was almost adorable. No need for formalities anymore. You can just call me Naruto, we are married, now. Hinata blushed. No. You are the Emperor, it wouldn't be proper. And you are the Empress, which makes you my equal. He didn't even give her room to argue. Hinata was sure she would die of emberment right now. How could she possibly be on first-name basis with the Emperor? Even her mother called Hiashi, Your Majesty. She couldn't imagine her parents being on a first-name basis, even after being married for so long. Even if I am Empress now, it would not be decent for me to simply call you by name. I apologize, Your Majesty. Naruto sighed, but he didn't argue. He wouldn't push her to do something that she didn't want to do. Maybe when she was more comfortable with him, he would try again. Then, may I call you Hinata? Empress, just sounds too formal for me. Hinata couldn't believe that this man was the Emperor. He was such a gentleman beyond words. She couldn't imagine him fighting against anyone. He seemed way too kind to hurt a soul. You can call me whatever you see fit. Naruto smiled happily at her and squeezed her hand a little tighter. Then, Hinata it is. I just want to apologize for this sudden marriage between us. I first saw you a few months ago when ping through the Hyuga kingdom. You truly are as beautiful as they say. Ah, the usual, most beautiful princess in the kingdom, compliment that everyone gave her. So he married her because of her looks. How shallow. Well, that makes it easier for her to not fall in love with him, then. But, that's not the only reason why I chose you. Naruto continued, catching her by surprise. I want to get to know you, too. What you like, dislike, your childhood, and everything up till now. If we are to spend our life together, I don't want to be strangers forever. Your beauty is just a bonus. Oh no. So, He was a man who actually saw beyond her looks, then. This would be harder than she thought. As soon as the man with white hair reached a few feet in front of Hiyashi's throne, Hiyashi bowed his head in greeting. We are honored to have the Emperor here in the Hyuga Kingdom. We hope your travels were safe and pleasant. The man in white bowed in return. Thank you for the hospitality. I am the Emperor's private bodyguard, Kakashi. Please extend your greetings to His Majesty. Kakashi stepped to the side and signaled for the 6 men to move aside as well. They stepped away to reveal, much to Hinata's surprise, a man who looked just about her age. He had striking blonde hair and the most beautiful cerulean blue eyes she's ever seen. Like Kakashi, his attire was black and orange, but was evidently more elegant, and he even wore a long black cape that draped down his back to the floor. Hinata stood in a phase when he suddenly flashed a smile at them and bowed his head slightly in respect. King Hiyashi, pleased to meet you. Likewise, Emperor. The Hyuga royal family welcomes you to our palace. A beautiful palace it is. Out of the 8 kingdoms that I've visited, only the Uchiha Palace comes to par with it. Thank you for the compliment, Your Majesty. And as for the marriage, what are the specifics of the ceremony? As stated in the royal decree, I will gift the resources to this kingdom within the next 30 days. If there's any delay or trouble with the transportation of the items, I will be notified immediately to solve it and let you know as well. The ceremony will be in 2 days. I'm sure the message has already been relayed to you, but the royals of all 8 kingdoms and their families will attending. I will not be inviting the whole empire since it'll be troublesome to keep control of that many people in the Uzumaki Palace. Do not worry about the details, decoration and food will be entirely taken care of. You just need to show up. As for the marriage itself, Naruto's eyes trailed over to Hinata. Hinata tried desperately to keep her gaze steady, but ended up averting them down to the floor. She was hopeful that the Emperor would be decent, but now that he stood in front of her, she was pretty damn sure she underestimated his qualities. She couldn't believe that she was being betrothed to such a handsome man, who literally held the empire in the palm of his hand, and yet, still seemed like an absolute gentleman. She suddenly felt like she wasn't worthy enough to be standing beside him as empress. I promise to take care of your daughter and ensure that she is protected at all costs. She'll be the empire's treasure and my life's devotion. No one has ever spoken about her like that. For the first time in her life, she felt like she mattered. We thank you for your compliments, Your Majesty. If my daughter is unfit in any way in the future, you are welcome to discipline her as you now have all authority over her as her husband. Naruto simply just shook his head and couldn't stop staring at Hinata, who refused to meet eyes with him. She was even more beautiful up close. I have no doubts about her. Though this is our first meeting, she seems humble and kind, the very qualities that I desire in a wife. She will be a fine empress, as I will train and guide her to become a leader. Rest assured, King Hiyashi. Naruto then beckoned for Kakashi to give him something. Kakashi pulled out a scroll from the inside of his sleeves and handed it to him. Naruto swiftly unrolled it with one pull of the red sash and then presented it to Hiyashi. As her father, you will sign first. This is the legal marriage certificate of the empire. It will be recorded and kept safe in the Uzumaki Records Temple and no one will have access to it, with the exception of you and I, as well as the princess. Hiyashi nodded and quickly scanned over the writings before snapping his fingers. A gold signature glowed at the bottom of the scroll and then permanently inked itself onto the paper. Naruto then turned to Hinata, who hesitatingly did the same. Naruto then rolled it back up and Kakashi retrieved it, sliding it up again into his long-robed sleeve. It is set, then. We are legally betrothed to each other. All that's left is the public ceremony and announcement. Hinata's cheeks flushed when Naruto reached his palm out to her. My bride. Let's go home. As if it had a mind of its own, her hand placed itself into his. He held it tightly and pulled her closer to him, flashing yet another charming smile, but this time only for her. She finally had the courage to make eye contact with him and felt like she drowned in them the moment she did. Naruto Uzumaki was her husband, now. Once that fact clicked in her mind, her stomach fluttered and her heart slammed against her chest. He gently pulled her along with him as they made their way out of throne room, with Kakashi and everyone following after. Hinata could see the carriage and 4 horses awaiting at the bottom of the stairs of the castle entrance. The servants just finished loading up her belongings and then one of them quickly ran over to open the carriage door for them. Naruto turned back around to face Hiashi and Hyuga royal family as Kakashi and the rest of his men scurried along on their horses and onto the sides of the carriage. We will take our leave and we will meet again in 2 days. I will send over 4 of my men for your protection on the way to the Uzumaki Palace. He held out one hand. Now that we are family, I hope you don't mind me calling you father. Hiashi just bowed his head in respect and then shook hands with Naruto. It is an absolute honor to have the Emperor as my son-in-law. He then turned his attention to Hinata. Hinata waited eagerly for his words. Maybe he will finally say something encouraging or kind to her now that she is officially departing from the Hyuga kingdom. We will see you in 2 days. Ah, of course. What was she expecting? Hiashi was never the one for sentimental words, and frankly, they didn't have that good of a relationship for him to suddenly start caring. Naruto once again pulled her with him and urged her to go in first. Turning her back to her family, she took a deep breath and stepped into the carriage, with Naruto following closely after. Though she never knew love from her family and all they did was hurt and reject her, with the exception of Hanabi, her heart still felt heavy as the door closed shut. Was this how it felt to miss something? It was pathetic though, that she would miss the very people who didn't even want her. As if it was magic, her thoughts dispersed into thin air and the heaviness in her chest disappeared when a strong hand held hers and intimately entangled their fingers together. She didn't even notice that Naruto sat right next to her when he entered. Are you alright? That was such a simple question, but it was a question that no one has ever asked her before, because no one ever cared. She felt like crying but she took a deep breath and held it in. How empowering it would be to cry in front of her husband, who she just barely met. I will manage. Thank you, Your Majesty. Wow. Music to his ears. He finally heard her voice. She was so soft-spoken that it was almost adorable. No need for formalities anymore. You can just call me Naruto, we are married, now. Hinata blushed. No. You are the emperor, it wouldn't be proper. And you are the empress, which makes you my equal. He didn't even give her room to argue. Hinata was sure she would die of emberment right now. How could she possibly be on first-name basis with the emperor? Even her mother called Hiashi, Your Majesty. She couldn't imagine her parents being on a first-name basis, even after being married for so long. Even if I am empress now, it would not be decent for me to simply call you by name. I apologize, Your Majesty. Naruto sighed, but he didn't argue. He wouldn't push her to do something that she didn't want to do. Maybe when she was more comfortable with him, he would try again. Then, may I call you Hinata? Empress. Just sounds too formal for me. Hinata couldn't believe that this man was the emperor. He was such a gentleman beyond words. She couldn't imagine him fighting against anyone, he seemed way too kind to hurt a soul. You can call me whatever you see fit. Naruto smiled happily at her and squeezed her hand a little tighter. Then, Hinata it is. I just want to apologize for this sudden marriage between us. I first saw you a few months ago when ping through the Hyuga kingdom. You truly are as beautiful as they say. Ah, the usual, most beautiful princess in the kingdom, compliment that everyone gave her. So he married her because of her looks. How shallow. Well, that makes it easier for her to not fall in love with him, then. But, That's not the only reason why I chose you. Naruto continued, catching her by surprise. I want to get to know you, too. What you like, dislike, your childhood, and everything up till now. If we are to spend our life together, I don't want to be strangers forever. Your beauty is just a bonus. Oh no. So, he was a man who actually saw beyond her looks, then. This would be harder than she thought. As soon as the man with white hair reached a few feet in front of Hiyashi's throne, Hiyashi bowed his head in greeting. We are honored to have the Emperor here in the Hyuga Kingdom. We hope your travels were safe and pleasant. The man in white bowed in return. Thank you for the hospitality. I am the Emperor's private bodyguard, Kakashi. Please extend your greetings to His Majesty. Kakashi stepped to the side and signaled for the 6 men to move aside as well. They stepped away to reveal, much to Hinata's surprise, a man who looked just about her age. He had striking blonde hair and the most beautiful cerulean blue eyes she's ever seen. Like Kakashi, his attire was black and orange, but was evidently more elegant, and he even wore a long black cape that draped down his back to the floor. Hinata stood in a phase when he suddenly flashed a smile at them and bowed his head slightly in respect. King Hiyashi, pleased to meet you. Likewise, Emperor. The Hyuga royal family welcomes you to our palace. A beautiful palace it is. Out of the 8 kingdoms that I've visited, only the Uchiha Palace comes to par with it. Thank you for the compliment, Your Majesty. And as for the marriage, what are the specifics of the ceremony? As stated in the royal decree, I will gift the resources to this kingdom within the next 30 days. If there's any delay or trouble with the transportation of the items, I will be notified immediately to solve it and let you know as well. The ceremony will be in 2 days. I'm sure the message has already been relayed to you, but the royals of all 8 kingdoms and their families will attending. I will not be inviting the whole empire since it'll be troublesome to keep control of that many people in the Uzumaki Palace. Do not worry about the details, decoration and food will be entirely taken care of. You just need to show up. As for the marriage itself, Naruto's eyes trailed over to Hinata. Hinata tried desperately to keep her gaze steady, but ended up averting them down to the floor. She was hopeful that the Emperor would be decent, but now that he stood in front of her, she was pretty damn sure she underestimated his qualities. She couldn't believe that she was being betrothed to such a handsome man, who literally held the empire in the palm of his hand, and yet, still seemed like an absolute gentleman. She suddenly felt like she wasn't worthy enough to be standing beside him as Empress. I promise to take care of your daughter and ensure that she is protected at all costs. She'll be the Empire's treasure and my life's devotion. No one has ever spoken about her like that. For the first time in her life, she felt like she mattered. We thank you for your compliments, Your Majesty. If my daughter is unfit in any way in the future, you are welcome to discipline her as you now have all authority over her as her husband. Naruto simply just shook his head and couldn't stop staring at Hinata, who refused to meet eyes with him. She was even more beautiful up close. I have no doubts about her. Though this is our first meeting, she seems humble and kind, the very qualities that I desire in a wife. She will be a fine empress, as I will train and guide her to become a leader. Rest assured, King Hiyashi. Naruto then beckoned for Kakashi to give him something. Kakashi pulled out a scroll from the inside of his sleeves and handed it to him. Naruto swiftly unrolled it with one pull of the red sash and then presented it to Hiyashi. As her father, you will sign first. This is the legal marriage certificate of the Empire. It will be recorded and kept safe in the Uzumaki Records Temple and no one will have access to it, with the exception of you and I, as well as the princess. Hiyashi nodded and quickly scanned over the writings before snapping his fingers. A gold signature glowed at the bottom of the scroll and then permanently inked itself onto the paper. Naruto then turned to Hinata, who hesitatingly did the same. Naruto then rolled it back up and Kakashi retrieved it, sliding it up again into his long robed sleeve. It is set, then. We are legally betrothed to each other. All that's left is the public ceremony and announcement. Hinata's cheeks flushed when Naruto reached his palm out to her. My bride. Let's go home. As if it had a mind of its own, her hand placed itself into his. He held it tightly and pulled her closer to him, flashing yet another charming smile, but this time only for her. She finally had the courage to make eye contact with him and felt like she drowned in them the moment she did. Naruto Uzumaki was her husband, now. Once that fact clicked in her mind, her stomach fluttered and her heart slammed against her chest. He gently pulled her along with him as they made their way out of throne room, with Kakashi and everyone following after. Hinata could see the carriage and 4 horses awaiting at the bottom of the stairs of the castle entrance. The servants just finished loading up her belongings and then one of them quickly ran over to open the carriage door for them. Naruto turned back around to face Hiashi and Hyuga royal family as Kakashi and the rest of his men scurried along on their horses and onto the sides of the carriage. We will take our leave and we will meet again in 2 days. I will send over 4 of my men for your protection on the way to the Uzumaki Palace. He held out one hand. Now that we are family, I hope you don't mind me calling you father. Hiashi just bowed his head in respect and then shook hands with Naruto. It is an absolute honor to have the Emperor as my son-in-law. He then turned his attention to Hinata. Hinata waited eagerly for his words. Maybe he will finally say something encouraging or kind to her now that she is officially departing from the Hyuga kingdom. We will see you in 2 days. Ah, of course. What was she expecting? Hiashi was never the one for sentimental words, and frankly, they didn't have that good of a relationship for him to suddenly start caring. Naruto once again pulled her with him and urged her to go in first. Turning her back to her family, she took a deep breath and stepped into the carriage, with Naruto following closely after. Though she never knew love from her family and all they did was hurt and reject her, with the exception of Hanabi, her heart still felt heavy as the door closed shut. Was this how it felt to miss something? It was pathetic though, that she would miss the very people who didn't even want her. As if it was magic, her thoughts dispersed into thin air and the heaviness in her chest disappeared when a strong hand held hers and intimately entangled their fingers together. She didn't even notice that Naruto sat right next to her when he entered. Are you alright? That was such a simple question, but it was a question that no one has ever asked her before, because no one ever cared. She felt like crying but she took a deep breath and held it in. How empowering it would be to cry in front of her husband, who she just barely met. I will manage. Thank you, Your Majesty. Wow. Music to his ears. He finally heard her voice. She was so soft-spoken that it was almost adorable. No need for formalities anymore. You can just call me Naruto, we are married, now. Hinata blushed. No. You are the emperor, it wouldn't be proper. And you are the empress, which makes you my equal. He didn't even give her room to argue. Hinata was sure she would die of emberment right now. How could she possibly be on first-name basis with the emperor? Even her mother called Hiashi, Your Majesty. She couldn't imagine her parents being on a first-name basis, even after being married for so long. Even if I am empress now, it would not be decent for me to simply call you by name. I apologize, Your Majesty. Naruto sighed, but he didn't argue. He wouldn't push her to do something that she didn't want to do. Maybe when she was more comfortable with him, he would try again. Then, may I call you Hinata? Empress. Just sounds too formal for me. Hinata couldn't believe that this man was the emperor. He was such a gentleman beyond words. She couldn't imagine him fighting against anyone, he seemed way too kind to hurt a soul. You can call me whatever you see fit. Naruto smiled happily at her and squeezed her hand a little tighter. Then, Hinata it is. I just want to apologize for this sudden marriage between us. I first saw you a few months ago when ping through the Hyuga kingdom. You truly are as beautiful as they say. Ah, the usual, most beautiful princess in the kingdom, compliment that everyone gave her. So he married her because of her looks. How shallow. Well, that makes it easier for her to not fall in love with him, then. But, that's not the only reason why I chose you. Naruto continued, catching her by surprise. I want to get to know you, too. What you like, dislike, your childhood, and everything up till now. If we are to spend our life together, I don't want to be strangers forever. Your beauty is just a bonus. Oh no. So, he was a man who actually saw beyond her looks, then. This would be harder than she thought. Small steps. Naruto awoke the next morning and quickly glanced behind him to see if Hinata was there. He smiled faintly when he saw that she was still sound asleep, cuddled in the lush velvet blankets. They did sleep in the same bed last night, but he did not touch her and even slept with his back towards her. He could sense that she had difficulties adjusting and he couldn't force himself on her if they had yet to establish a deeper relationship. Letting out a small yawn, he got up and with the snap of his fingers, 2 servants came rushing into the bedroom. The Empress will probably be hungry when she awakes. Please tell the chef to make 2 bowls of fresh ramen. They bowed and then left as quickly as they came in. Naruto walked to the balcony doors that were draped with long curtains and quietly shifted the curtains to the side. He then opened the doors and walked out to the balcony that extended over the Uzumaki Palace. He breathed in the crisp morning air and grinned at the sight below him, his beloved home and its people. He was born in this kingdom on the night of the blood moon. His father was a fierce soldier who fought for the last Uzumaki king while his mother was a talented teacher who taught combat skills to young trainees. His mother passed away after giving birth to him and shortly after that, his father tragically died in battle. Kakashi was a good friend of his father's, and so he was entrusted in Kakashi's care right before his father left for battle. His childhood in the Uzumaki kingdom was not entirely all that great. He created a lot of trouble and mischief for attention, because everyone shunned him. The reason why his mother passed away after giving birth to him, was because he was born with an immense amount of power. It is known in the Uzumaki kingdom that every 100 years during the blood moon, a child will be born inheriting the strength and spirit of the entity known as the nine-tailed fox. His father left behind a scroll containing the seal for the entity, in which Kakashi performed on him when he turned 1 year old. After that, Kakashi had to train him rigorously over the years for him to fully know how to control the nine-tailed fox's power. Before Naruto knew how to truly harness the power within him, he hated the fact that he was the one born with it. It made people reject and neglect him out of fear. He remembered the dirty looks that other parents gave him when he played or made friends with their children. He remembered how they pulled their children away from him and he heard every insult said, behind his back. Everyone called him a monster. He used to be angry and bitter about it. However, as he matured over the years, he realized that the people's view about him won't change if he just kept causing trouble for attention. That's when he swore to be an emperor, and not a king. He made it his life goal to not only become the very leader of the kingdom that shunned him, but the leader of a whole empire. He needed to implement changes. He wanted peace, harmony, and he didn't want to see anyone else being treated like him when he was young. Most of all, he wanted to earn kindness and respect from the kingdom that initially feared him. He just wanted a place where he could truly call home and claim the people as his beloved people. He also didn't want the 8 kingdoms to fight over who would be the most powerful anymore, because it was a war that would never be won. They just needed a centralized leadership to promote stability and unity, not competition. The journey to get to where he was now was insanely challenging, but if he had to do it all over again, he would. His thoughts scattered and his ears perked when he heard shuffling behind him. He turned to see Hinata getting out of bed, and as soon as she realized his presence, she immediately bowed on instinct. Emperor. Good morning. Naruto chuckled. Good morning, Hinata. It still felt incredibly strange to be called by her name by someone as powerful as he. He spoke to her so casually, as if they both weren't people of high status. Let's get ready for the day, shall we? I have a lot to show you. Your bath should be made already and breakfast will be waiting in the grand dining hall. Yes, Your Majesty. Naruto wished she wouldn't be so formal with him, but he forced himself to ignore it and gestured her over to his servants, who then guided her away to the bathroom. He wondered if that was how she always acted. She's been extremely detailed about honorifics and displaying respect. Maybe it was just a Hyuga thing, because he realized that Hiashi was pretty much the same as well. Naruto felt a slight disappointment when he thought about it. He hoped that she wasn't going to be like that forever. Surely, there was a real person of character and depth underneath all that proper etiquette. Or if there wasn't, and this was just how her personality truly is, then he guessed that he'll just have to live with the fact that her looks deceived him. That was probably the best ramen noodle soup that Hinata has ever had in her life. She thought that the Emperor's meal choice for breakfast would be more extravagant, but she was taken by surprise by the simple bowl of ramen on the table when they arrived down at the dining hall. After tasting the first sip of the soup and slurping a mouthful of the noodles, she swore that she would have melted to the floor if there wasn't a chair to hold her. As of now, Naruto was touring her around the palace, which was at least 10 times larger than the Hyugas. What's your favorite flower? Hinata blinked. What a random question to ask. I have always liked lavenders. That's exactly what I thought, too. Your eyes remind me of them. Naruto reached out his hand to her and she hesitated to take it. It's okay, Hinata, you're my wife. He reminded and reassured her. Like I said, I don't want us to be strangers forever. We can take small steps at a time. It was strange. Hinata barely knew this man and they literally met last night, but he had a funny way of making her restlessness and anxiety go away. She shyly placed her hand in his and figured that it would be good to establish a closer relationship with him, but she still vowed that she would not fall in love. Romance. Let me show you our banquet hall. This is where our ceremony will be held. He gently dragged her along with him until they reached in front of 2 large doors that swung open at Naruto's presence. Hinata nearly gasped at the sight. The floor was lined with marble tiles and instead of walls, they were surrounded by open GL windows that showed a magnificent view of the Uzumaki village below. Crystal chandeliers hung down from the painted ceilings and the room was probably the size of the whole Hyuga throne room. She almost jumped when music suddenly filled the room. Naruto brought her closer and laughed lightly at her dumbfounded expression. Do you dance? Of course. It is required for all royalties to learn. But, are we going to? Yes, we are. Hinata blushed when he lightly gripped the side of her waist with one hand and pulled her so that their bodies were nearly touching. She immediately averted her eyes down and her heart felt like it would jump out of her chest at any moment. She's never been this close to a man before. Why, Your Majesty, don't you think we are too close? Seeing that she was uncomfortable, he pulled away slightly. I apologize, but we are still going to dance. This is just practice. It will be required, as tradition in every kingdom, for the betrothed couple to share a dance together. Yes, I am aware of the tradition. I'm sorry for my meekness, Your Majesty. I'm just not used to all this, yet. I understand. Whatever makes you uncomfortable, please do let me know. I want to make the transition from being princess to empress easier for you. Hinata slowly let herself indulge in the movements and her feet followed after his, as if she was floating on a cloud. So, what will be my duties as empress? Well, first and foremost, I will have to assess your strengths and weaknesses. Whatever you are good at, I will have you in charge of it. What do you enjoy doing? Hinata pondered for a few moments before answering. I like knitting. I often do it in my spare time. Naruto simply nodded, encouraging her to go on. I also love designing dresses, but my father would not let me do such labor. I am not too skilled in combat, but I enjoy archery and swordsmanship. Naruto raised an eyebrow, surprised that such a gentle and soft-spoken woman as she would like those things. Archery and sword fighting, huh? Hinata made a small, almost sad, smile at him. Yes, but I wouldn't consider it my strengths. Naruto felt like there definitely was more to her than what meets the eye. It almost seemed as if she was harboring some deep feelings about herself. The way she smiled so sorrowfully right now made his stomach churn in guilt and pity. He just wanted to pull her into a tight hug to comfort her, but he knew they weren't anywhere near intimate enough for him to be able to do that. Your Majesty, could I ask a favor? Of course, Hinata. You're my wife. He reminded her yet again for the second time today. Hinata's mind lingered on her bed with Hiashi. She wanted to desperately beat him so that he could finally see her worth, but she knew it wasn't going to be easy. She could not even beat Hanabi, so the chances of beating her father, who was the most powerful man in the Hyuga kingdom, were little to none. She wasn't sure if she wanted to reveal that to Naruto, yet. He might even frown upon her for challenging her own father to a duel. I want to get stronger. She replied, instead. I don't want to be an empress who is weak. I want to gain more confidence in myself. I want to be stronger, not just in terms of my fighting skills, but also my personality. If you are willing, my emperor, please teach me to become a worthy empress of your empire. Naruto slowly stopped dancing, but kept his hold on her. He studied her face and it was filled with such a determination that matched his own when he vowed to be emperor. Similar. She was the same as him. She had something that she needed to prove. Hinata once again felt her face flush when Naruto brought his hand up to softly caress the side of her cheek. You are not weak, Hinata. There was an evident flicker of shock in Hinata's eyes. It was foreign to hear such words that were opposite of what everyone said about her for the past 20 years. That fact that you are willing to openly express what your weaknesses are to me, means that you are already confident. You want to improve, and you are not scared to admit it. I admire that. Hinata didn't know how to respond. Was this man just going to keep surprising her with his words and his kind gestures? If she wasn't so adamant about not falling in love with him, she was sure that she would be heads over heels already. I will teach you everything I know. I promise that in 1 year, you will be the most powerful empress in history, but, can I ask for something in return? Hinata just blinked at him, curious as to why he would even need to ask that. He was the emperor, for goodness sake. Of course, Your Majesty. Would it be possible, in a year's time, for you to return my affections? Out of all the things that he could have requested, he asked for the one thing that she could not, and would not, give him. She opened her mouth to answer, but could not utter any words. How could she tell her own husband that she would not give him her love? But, she couldn't break her own vow and say yes to him either. Romance. My emperor. Hinata found herself pulling away from him and took a step back. We just met last night. I apologize for my harsh words, but you do not know me well enough to ask for my affections. Nor do I believe that you have such feelings for me in such a short matter of time. Please allow us to build a deeper relationship before you ask us to be truly intimate with each other. How interesting. Naruto did not expect that answer. Well, on the contrary, my empress, you do not know me either. Hinata hoped that he was not angry with her. He even addressed her as Empress, after he specifically told her last night that he did not like using formalities with each other. She let out a mental sigh of relief when he smiled faintly at her. I won't force your feelings. Whether you come to accept my affections or not, I will still help you improve. Naruto waved his hand in the air and the music abruptly stopped. Well then, let's continue. Since you said your favorite flowers are lavenders, let's head to the garden next. He turned around and proceeded to walk towards the exit of the banquet room. My emperor. Hinata suddenly called him, and he glanced back to see that she was still standing in her place. It seemed like she wanted to say something to him, but was hesitating. Yes. Naruto urged her to continue on. Much to his surprise, Hinata made a small bow to him before speaking again. I have something that I must accomplish. If, after the year is over, and I have reached my goal, I promise that I will respond properly to your Majesty's feelings. Naruto guessed that she wasn't comfortable enough with him to reveal that goal of hers yet. Well, whatever it was, he hoped that would be able to help in some way. And he truly hoped that her response will be worth waiting for. Then, I will be patiently awaiting for your answer, Hinata. Closer to you. Closer to you. Hinata wasn't sure how she would feel once she stepped foot in front of the 8 royal families. She gazed at herself in the mirror and admired her wedding dress. It was a white, deep versus neck dress with floral laced sleeves that came down to her elbows. The dress itself was made out of a lightweight tulle fabric and embraced the curves of her upper body and petite waist, then flowed down elegantly to the floor. She wore simple pearl earrings and her hair framed her face with soft curls. Today, she would be known publicly as the Empress of the Uzumaki Empire. Every leader of the 8 kingdoms would lay their eyes on her and set their expectations. She knew that right now, she lacked the qualities to be a queen, but that was not going to discourage her. Like Naruto said, if she had the strength to admit her own weaknesses, then she believed that she had the confidence to become a greater woman. This was just the beginning, anyways. A knock at the door disrupted her thoughts. Come in. The door opened to reveal Kakashi in a stunning formal suite. Empress, it is time. The guests are here. I will escort you to the banquet hall. Hinata let out a deep breath and walked over to him, linking one arm in his. Don't worry, my empress. Kakashi urged her and lightly placed his free hand over hers. You will do fine. Hinata hesitantly smiled at him. I hope so. The banquet hall was filled with lively music. Naruto was busy greeting the others, but he kept his attention on the door from time to time. He was eager to see Hinata in her wedding dress. Emperor. He turned around to see Sasuke, heir to the throne of the Uchiha kingdom. Alongside him was Sakura. Ah, my good friends. Long time no see. Naruto grinned as he shook hands with Sasuke. How's marriage life? Fill me in, because I am a new man starting today. Sakura chuckled at his statement. Marriage is definitely hard. It has been a lot of pressure on us since we're next in line for the throne. I assume you will be at my coronation, correct? Sasuke added in. Naruto looked at him like he was crazy. Would I really miss the moment that you become the king of the Uchiha kingdom? Who knows, you might be busy now that you're both the emperor and a married man. Sasuke shrugged. Speaking of which, I've been hearing rumors that she is the most beautiful princess in all the kingdoms. I cannot wait to see her. Sakura almost squealed in excitement. Naruto grinned cheekily. Oh, you have no idea. She is indeed absolutely gorgeous, but there's much more to her than just her looks. I have never met anyone in royalty who is as humble and graceful as her. I am guessing that those are your in-laws. Naruto's eyes trailed over to where Sasuke was looking. He could see the Hyuga family talking to other royalties and peering down at the Uzumaki village through the open GL windows walls. Yes, I already greeted them earlier when they came in. Wow, the Hyuga's eyes are really as beautiful and haunting as they say. Just imagine what they look like when they activate their Byakugan. Sakura said in awe and couldn't keep her attention off of Hiyashi's eyes. Sasuke lightly nudged her on the side, indicating that it was rude to stare for so long. Naruto's ears perked up and he immediately turned his attention away from Sasuke and Sakura and to the main doors when he heard the transition of contemporary to click music. His eyes lit up in anticipation when the doors opened to reveal two of his palace servants, who played trumpets to gather everyone's attention. Naruto walked to the middle of the room. Once the royalties of the 8 kingdoms saw him in the center, they understood that it was time and they gathered on both sides of the light golden runway that extended from the doors right to where Naruto stood. Hiashi and the rest of the Hyuga family also came and stood a few feet next to Naruto. The Empress has arrived. The servants both announced in unison before stepping aside to reveal Kakashi, with Hinata linking an arm with him. Naruto almost forgot how to breathe once she stepped into the room and coincidentally made eye contact with him first. Oh my! He could hear the evident gasps and whispers of everyone around him and could see that everyone seemingly stood hypnotized as Hinata and Kakashi walked towards him. My goodness, it was as if he saw her for the first time all over again. He suddenly felt proud that she was his empress. She really embodied the characteristics of a beautiful and noble queen, even though he knew that she probably thought she was lacking in certain qualities. Not in his eyes, though. He has never met any other woman who would fit the throne so perfectly as she did. Once they stood in front of him, he stepped forward and extended his hand towards her. Hinata smiled shyly at him. She let go of Kakashi and placed her hand in Naruto's open palm. Kakashi retreated to the right side of Naruto and then Hinata turned to face her royal guests. She could see familiar faces of those who have visited the Hyuga kingdom before. The presence of the Hyuga family to her side was a bit overbearing, but she stood her ground and scanned across the faces of Hiashi, her mother, and Hanabi, making a slight nod to acknowledge them. Kings and queens of my Uzumaki Empire, thank you for joining me today. I invited you all here to share my happiness and joy. I have been your emperor for the past 5 years, with no ruling empress by my side. That changes, today. Starting from this day forward, Hinata Hyuga, who is the first princess born to King Hiashi of the Hyuga kingdom, will now be known as the Uzumaki Empress. She will reign alongside me to keep the allegiance between all 8 kingdoms strong and united. Hinata almost jumped at the immediate thundering sound of everyone clapping in the room. She hoped that she was doing a good job at hiding how nervous she was right now. When the doors opened and she felt every single pair of eyes look at her, she wanted to just yank her arm from Kakashi and run away. However, her gaze met with Naruto's in that instant, and she suddenly drowned out everyone else in the room. She kept her attention solely on him when she walked down the aisle. You all have my promise, that she is the best decision I will ever make as emperor. Naruto bowed his head to everyone as a gesture of kindness and respect. Hinata was amazed. He was the emperor and had sole authority over all of these royalties, but he still humbled himself in front of them. He was so different than any other king or ruler she's ever known. She could tell that everyone in the room looked at him in awe and inspiration. She could even see a glimpse of pride in Hiashi's eyes, the very same glint of pride he showed whenever Hanabi did something that made him proud. That ignited a fire in her. She wanted to know more about her husband, his past, how he became emperor, and how he gained the trust of even the most coldest kings in the 8 kingdoms. What exactly did he do to pave his way into the hearts of all these people? Even though they were all rulers of their own kingdom, they would still willingly submit to him. Hinata was taken by surprise when the kings of each kingdom, including her own father, walked up in unison and stood in front of her and Naruto in a perfect horizontal line. Your Majesty, we are honored to be here to witness the coronation of our Empress. The Uchiha king replied on behalf of them all. She is indeed as beautiful as they all say. We trust in your decision, and we offer you our blessings. Hinata's eyes widened when they all bowed their heads towards Naruto. To have the ability to make kings bow to him, it was extraordinary. Thank you, my friends. Your blessings and approval of this marriage is a great gift to me above all else. Now, with a wave of his hand, the music became louder and the servants who stood still in the back of the room began to hustle, bringing in more plates of food to set on the tables and drinks to serve. Please enjoy yourselves. As a token of my appreciation for you all being here today, food and drinks will be served unlimited, until sunset. I will also be gifting 20 rubies per family in each kingdom. Excited chatter filled the room and slowly, the kings and the rest of the guests dispersed again, greeting each other and making their way to the food table. You okay? Naruto leaned in and whispered to her. Yes. Hinata nodded and let out a small sigh of relief, knowing that all the attention wasn't on her anymore. Though, she could still feel the occasional stares from the queens and princesses, probably for her looks, as usual. Would you like to greet your family? Hinata glanced over and could see that her parents were busy talking to the king of the Aburame kingdom. She knew that even though today was about her becoming empress, it did not matter much to them. They probably came solely because they wanted to meet with other royalties, and probably brag about the Hyuga kingdom in comparison to others, and to show respect to Naruto. Hanabi was over at the food table, mingling with Ino, a princess from the Yamanaka kingdom. No. Naruto was taken back by her answer. You don't want to at least say hi to them? Your Majesty, my family is a bit complicated. Though I am glad that they are here today, I am the last person they'd want to see. Ah, another layer revealed. Naruto thought that the Hyuga family was normally just that formal and strict with each other, but now, he understood that there was probably some tension behind doors. I understand. He gently ran his thumb over her knuckles in an effort to comfort her. By the way, Hinata, I'm pretty sure you already know this, but you look absolutely breathtaking. I seriously forgot how to breathe when you walked in. Hinata blushed and let out a small laugh at his statement. She's heard the rumors and gossips, and it wasn't exactly a surprising thing when her looks were the topic of a conversation, but she's never heard anyone say it directly to her. Naruto's stomach fluttered at the sound of her lovely laugh. This was the first time he's heard it. For the rest of the day, he introduced Hinata to the kings and queens, as well as the princes and princesses of each kingdom, some of whom Hinata noticed that Naruto seemed really close with. It made her feel ostracized, in a way, because she's never really thought about the fact that she has no friends. Her father kept her in the castle and made her stay committed to her studies since she was weak in combat. If she didn't have the strength, she might as well have the brains. She never ventured out much and never stepped foot out of the kingdom. Seeing how everyone here recognized each other in some sort of way made her slightly ashamed that she was an empress who did not even know her own people. That was another aspect she had to change about herself. She quickly familiarized herself with the royalties that Naruto introduced her to. The Uchiha Kingdom, ruled by King Fugaku and his queen, soon to be inherited by his only son, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sasuke's wife, Princess Sakura Haruno. The Nara Kingdom, ruled by recently crowned King Shikamaru, along with his wife Queen Tamari. The Inazuka Kingdom, ruled by King Kiba, who became king just 2 years ago when his mother, Queen Sum, passed away. He is currently engaged to Tamaki, a daughter of a noble family. The Yamanaka Kingdom, ruled by King Inoichi and his queen, and their daughter, Princess Ino. The Aburame Kingdom, ruled by King Shibi and his only son, Prince Shino. The Haruno Kingdom, ruled by King Kazashi and his queen. Their only daughter, Princess Sakura, is married to Sasuke Uchiha. The Hyuga and Uzumaki kingdoms were a given. She busied herself along with Naruto, who mingled often at almost every turn, so she didn't realize how fast time had passed by. It was only when Kakashi tapped on Naruto's shoulder and signaled his attention out the windows, that she realized the sun was already setting. Wow, already? Naruto blinked. He then gently guided her along with him to the center of the room once again and much to her surprise, turned to face her. She blushed when he let go of her hand and instead placed both hands on the side of her waist, pulling her in at a comfortable distance. Not too close, yet not too far apart. She then remembered that they had to dance, as per tradition. You forgot, didn't you? Naruto chuckled at her expression. Hinata gave him a small smile and nodded her head. I don't usually meet this many people a day. I'm a bit overwhelmed. Well, the day is almost over. Just keep your eyes on me and ignore everything else around you. I promise you'll feel better that way. She believed him. Maybe that was why everyone respected him. Whenever he spoke, he followed through with actions. She's only known him for 2 days, but so far, every time that he assured her that things will be okay, they actually were. As she locked her eyes on his, she didn't notice the change of the music and that the guests came closer to watch, forming a large circle around them. Then in an instant, she found herself following Naruto's every step and her body swayed according to where he guided her. Naruto wanted to desperately pull her closer, but he didn't want to make her feel awkward. He wondered how long it would be into their marriage until they were comfortable enough to be intimate. More than that, he wondered how long it would be until she opened up to him. He truly wanted to dive deep into her thoughts and he wouldn't mind both the good and the bad of her. He was her husband now, his feelings for her would be unconditional. It also crossed his mind that she might not come to return his affections at all. It slightly scared him that he might possibly spend his whole life with an unrequited love. He wondered how heartbreak felt like, though he never experienced it himself. The stories he heard were devastating and incredibly depressing. How was it that someone could love another person so much, then turn around and cause that much pain towards them? He could never imagine hurting Hinata in any way. Your Majesty. Hinata's sweet voice brought his attention back to reality. Would it be okay for me to start training tomorrow? Whatever this goal of hers was, it seemed to be on her mind very often. Naruto merely nodded. Of course. I promise you'll have the best teachers to help you. He froze and his beating heart sounded like drums in his ears when a smile graced her face. Will she ever stop taking his breath away? He swore he would do anything to keep that smile on. Thank you. When Hinata said that, she subconsciously pulled herself closer to him so that their foreheads were nearly touching, causing him to blush for the first time since they've met. Naruto closed his eyes tightly, let out a sigh and tightened his grip on her, which made Hinata suddenly think that something was wrong. Emperor. Naruto opened his eyes again and drowned himself into her lavender orbs. You can't just do that, Hinata. I might just kiss you right now. His gaze trailed down to her lips, and he could feel her body tense up. Hinata quickly lowered her head in case anyone noticed she was turning red. Geez, how can he just blatantly say that to her? She swallowed the air in her throat when Naruto leaned in and her face felt even hotter when their foreheads actually touched this time. Why, Your Majesty, I don't think it'd be appropriate to do that in front of our guests. She quickly replied, hoping to steer him away from what he was about to do. However, she was taken by surprise when he didn't go any further and just smirked teasingly at her. I said I might, not that I will. He paused. But, can we stay like this? There was no doubt that her heart rate was abnormal right now. She's never met a man who was so bold. She couldn't even imagine the expressions of her family who was probably watching them right now. It was so embering. But strangely, she didn't want to move away. To have him this close to her was nice. She gathered all the courage in her to look up at him and he was gazing at her so lovingly that it made her tremble. She has never had someone look at her like that before, like she was all that mattered in the room right now. Again, if she wasn't so adamant about not falling in love, she was pretty sure that she would have kissed him right then and there. Don't hold back. It's been a month into their marriage. Naruto has begun to train Hinata in terms of combat skills, rotating teachers every few days, and rotating between hand-to-hand combat, archery, sword fighting, and defense moves. Today, he wanted to see her Byakugan in action. He first wanted to train her without it so he could see where her strengths and weaknesses lie without her bloodline's help. As she mentioned to him before, she was not too skilled in archery or sword fighting. Her hand-to-hand fighting style was moderate, but needed more work. Her strongest skill was defense, which was a good thing, considering the fact that she was a woman. He slid open the door to the Uzumaki's private dojo room to reveal Hinata being flipped over by Guy, one of his strongest hand-to-hand combat soldiers. Not too hard on my empress, please. Naruto butted in, catching them both by surprise. No, I'm fine, don't go easy on me. Hinata roared, ignoring the slight pain that rippled through her shoulder when she stood up again. If you go easy on me, I'm not learning to my fullest potential. Naruto almost clapped at that and smiled proudly at her. So, have you managed to get a hit, yet? Guy is one of my strongest. If you can beat him, you can almost beat Kakashi. Judging by the hesitation in her expression and Guy's confident body language, he already knew the answer. I haven't. He's too strong. Hinata kept her eyes down. It was disappointing because she's been training with Guy for almost 2 weeks now, but she hasn't been able to hit him once. He was incredibly well built, and frankly, his body weight was 2 times her size. Naruto raised an eyebrow. There's no such thing. Come here. Hinata walked over to him, but kept her gaze to the floor. Lift your head, Hinata. My empress will not look down in defeat. Naruto replied firmly. At his words, Hinata clenched her hands into fists and obeyed, lifting her head up and making eye contact with him. He was right. She shouldn't have such a weak posture. Even the littlest things define her as an empress now. She should stand proud and tall, no matter the circumstances. He is stronger, in terms of strength and build, correct? Hinata nodded. So, you are much smaller and petite than him, correct? Again, Hinata nodded, but she wasn't getting his point. His skill is in strength, correct? Your Majesty, I don't understand. So if someone is larger than you and muscularly stronger, they have an immense amount of body which would make sense that they may be lacking in one obvious thing. Why don't you think about it? Hinata blinked and pondered at what he just said. She tracked back to Guy's fighting style and it suddenly clicked that if he had that much body his weakness would definitely be speed. She was smaller, and petite, which meant that she had the flexibility to move a lot faster than he did. But, Your Majesty, I don't think I am quick enough. Use your Byakugan. Hinata's eyes widened. But you specifically told me to train without it. I know. But today, and onwards, you will activate it. I intend to train your ability to use your Byakugan, too. Naruto beckoned for Guy to come over. And, I have never seen the Byakugan in action before, it'll be interesting to observe how you use it to your advantage. Please begin. Again, he stepped away from her and Guy and gave permission for them to start. Hinata immediately stood in a fighting stance and stared intensely at Guy. Byakugan, she whispered and could feel an immense power coursing through her body. Naruto stood amazed at what he saw. He could literally see her veins surrounding her eyes and popping out from the sides of her temples. Her kind and gentle eyes transformed into fierce and aggressive ones. He wondered what she saw when she activated it. He's heard rumors that it gave them X-ray vision and much more. Guy nearly smirked. My empress, you have not been able to lay a finger on me for the last 2 weeks. Since you have now activated your bloodline's technique, I am going in full force. Please do stop me if it is too much for you. Unlike the previous times when Guy started running towards her, Hinata was not anxious or afraid. She analyzed his movements with her eyes and noticed he was beginning to focus energy into his right arm. Guy swung his fist at her, but right before he hit the pit of her stomach, she dodged to the side. Your Majesty, if you want to win, you have to do more than just dodge me all the time. Guy was interrupted when an immense pain seemingly jolted through his back. He realized that before he could even blink, Hinata was already behind him and hit two major pressure points near his ribs. Faster than usual, Guy winced and blocked an incoming kick from her. Hinata felt so damn good right now. It's been forever since she's used her Byakugan in training and she forgot how much of an advantage it was. Though her abilities to use it was not nearly as strong as Hanabi's, she has been improving over the years. She was about to lunge forward to hit Guy on the shoulder, but he quickly grabbed her arm and flung her over to the floor. Naruto tensed up at how hard Hinata fell to the ground and resisted the urge to run over to her aid. Though he desperately wished she wasn't so hard on herself, he also knew that if she was not trained rigorously like this, then she would not improve. He truly wanted her to be the best. His eyes followed their movements and realized that with the Byakugan activated, she was noticeably more aware and became swifter in her defenses and counterattacks. He could tell that Guy was having trouble keeping up with how fast she moved around him. You're fast, but still sloppy. Don't be afraid to hit me at full force, Guy instructed. Hinata was glad he said that. Truth to be told, she was always holding back, she was so used to it, since that's all she ever did whenever she trained against Hanabi and her father's Hyuga instructors. She was just afraid to hurt people. Hinata, Naruto called out to her. Don't hold back. He can take it. And if this were a real battle, there is no room for any weakness or doubts. Trust in yourself. It was amazing that he knew what to say to her at the right exact time, as if he was reading her mind. Yes, Your Majesty. Hinata took a deep breath and felt a huge weight lifting off her shoulders. She focused all the energy from the core of her gut to the rest of her body and intensified her Byakugan's range and magnitude. It was a near guarantee that she could now predict Guy's every move before he could even lay a finger on her. Naruto's eyes widened when Hinata made the first move this time and seemingly disappeared right before his eyes, only to reappear again inches away from Guy. Before Guy could react, Hinata did a set of lightning-fast hand signs before thrusting both of her palms right into his chest. Guy let out a breathless gasp and flew back across the room, hitting the wall with a loud thump. Not allowing him to catch his breath or get up, Hinata dashed forward and immediately performed the same set of hand signs. Once again, her palms came into contact with Guy's chest, and he nearly flew up to the ceiling this time before hitting the ground once more. Guy wiped away the small drip of blood from his mouth before flashing a teasing smile at Hinata and slowly stood up. Not bad, my empress. He taunted her and bid her to come at him again. This time, instead of dodging and blocking, Hinata had the courage to hit without resisting any of her strength. She managed to escape every blow he made towards her but could tell that he wasn't losing his stamina at all, no matter how many times he took a hit from her or failed to keep up with her speed. Hinata took a step back and allowed for some distance between them before doing a different combination of hand techniques. Naruto narrowed his eyes upon seeing the complex formations and hearing Hinata whisper a subtle, gentle fist. Wasting no time, Hinata jumped forward in an attempt to attack Guy again, but right before she reached him, Naruto appeared between them. With almost no effort, he swiftly grasped both of her arms and forced them down. He was surprised at the amount of energy seeping from her hands. Hinata's gaze flickered at him, confused as to why he interfered so suddenly. Naruto sighed and then loosened his grip on her before glancing back to Guy, giving him a slight nod to dismiss him. He turned his attention back to Hinata. Hinata, that's enough for today. At the sound of his seemingly soothing, yet firm voice, Hinata froze in place. She then slowly allowed for her eyes to close, deactivated her Byakugan, and relaxed her body. Naruto let go of her arms and then boldly came closer, cupping the sides of her cheeks affectionately. That was amazing. He smiled proudly at her. I've never seen that much determination in you before. How do you feel right now? Hinata was almost at loss for words because of how close he was, but she collected her thoughts before replying to him. I feel confident. It was weird to hear that come out of her own mouth. Gentle fist. I heard you whisper it. Is that one of the Hyuga's techniques? He dropped his hands down from her face but stood at the same distance. Yes, it is one of the many techniques passed down in the royal family. Hinata went through sweat and tears just learning that technique. It was unbelievable that she was able to knock down Guy with just one blow from her palm bottom attacks, considering how strong he was. I've only heard about it, that whoever is hit in areas of their major organs, will suffer internal damage. I couldn't let you do that to Guy, sorry. Hinata nodded, slightly ashamed at her own actions. She almost forgot the extent of injury from that technique, she was too immersed in fighting seriously to consider the consequences. Well, you managed to finally get a few hits at Guy, so that's all that matters. It's an improvement from the past 2 weeks. Would you like a reward? Hinata blinked. A reward? Up to you if you want it or not. You're the Empress, so you whatever you want, you shall have. It was like saying that he would give her the world if she asked for it. Goodness, this man was so good at unexpectedly charming her. What's the reward? Naruto couldn't help but adore the genuinely curious expression she had on. Close your eyes. Hinata was a bit skeptical, but she silently obeyed. Was he going to make something appear out of thin air or what? Or perhaps he had a jewelry to present to her. Naruto's attention initially averted down to her lips, but he figured that it would startle her too much. He wondered if she would eventually return his feelings if he slowly made advances towards her. He knew it wasn't a guarantee, though, she could just be repulsed by his affections if she truly did not like him the same way. Nonetheless, he had to try. A small step at a time was enough for him. He gently held the side of her shoulders and could feel her body stiffen at the physical contact. He then leaned in and pressed his lips softly on her forehead. Hinata was not expecting that at all. She felt like her stomach flipped over and there was no noise except for the sound of her beating heart. She fluttered her eyes open, only to see Naruto leaning yet again, placing another feather-like kiss on the side of her cheek. She blushed when he flashed a charming smile at her and bumped his nose with hers. That's your reward. In this 1 month of knowing him, she was beginning to realize that he was not afraid to show his affections to her, regardless if she came to return his feelings or not. He was also making her feel emotions that she has never felt before, nor could she even describe those emotions. It was such a strange and foreign thing for a man to be this loving towards her, when all she's ever known was cold shoulders and glares. And when he did display his affections, she did not know how to react. Thank you, Your Majesty. It was the only thing that came to mind, but it sounded so ridiculously awkward and out of context. She's never had a man kiss her before, whether it be on the forehead, cheek, or the lips. Naruto merely chuckled at her timid response and pulled away. So when will you tell me this goal of yours? Hinata felt guilty that she couldn't tell him. She was scared of his reaction if he knew that she wanted to get stronger partly to defeat her father. Would his perspective of her change? If I tell you, you will see me differently. Naruto was taken back by that. Did she have some deep, dark secret or something? As cliché as it sounded, she was beautiful and mysterious. There was so much about her that he wanted to know about. I promise, I won't ever change the way I see you. You are strong, confident, and the most genuinely honest woman I have met. Above that, you are my wife. I want us to be transparent with each other. I won't mind the good and bad of you, Hinata. That did not make her feel better. If anything, it just made that pit of guilt deeper in her gut. Here he was, telling her that his feelings towards her were unconditional, and yet, she still felt like she couldn't open up. She gazed up into his eyes and desperately wished to offer him something in return for all that he's willing to do for her. He had everything already, he was the emperor. Undoubtedly, the only thing he wanted from her was her love. She couldn't even give him that. Romance. Letting out a small breath, She made the first move this time to get closer to him. She shyly placed her forehead on his chest and timidly brought her arms around his waist, pulling herself safe against his body. Naruto bit his lower lip to suppress the all-too-happy smile that was going to break out any time soon. Oh geez, this woman would be the death of him. He wrapped his arms around her petite body and snuggled into her lavender-scented hair. This was their first hug. He honestly wanted to squeeze her tightly, but restrained himself. Your Majesty, all I can ever say to you is thank you. I apologize, but I am just not ready yet to fully open up to you. Forgive me for not meeting you halfway. Hinata muttered quietly. It's all right, at least you are honest about it with me. We have forever together, you can tell me whenever you decide it's the right time. I don't mind waiting, but I am eager at the same time. Hinata nodded and didn't say anything anymore. She was a bit too fixated at the moment on how good it felt to be in his arms. What a strange thing it was, that she was experiencing what warmth and affection felt like from a man who she's only known for a month, instead of from her own blood family who raised her. She then understood why people changed so much when they were in love. All these good bubbly feelings of comfort and knowing that there was someone who would accept them, flaws and all, is something that they would not trade for the world. All the more reason why she should keep her distance, because right now, if he told her to drop everything regarding her revenge and grudge against her family, she would do it in a heartbeat.